Long ball is going to go for a touchdown. The game's over. Webster Slaughter.
Metcalf will go for the score. Unbelievable.
45-40. Run, William, run. He's got blockers in front. 5. Touchdown. Joshua Cribbs turns disaster into a score.
Sight wants it all on this one for Logan, and he is there.
Jim Brown to the 30. Jim Brown is going to go in for another touchdown.
The Cleveland Browns select Baker Mayfield.
Wow. It is Baker Mayfield.
I woke up feeling dangerous.
Hello, Cleveland. Welcome to the 1085 Grand Podcast. I'm Anthony Joki. He's Jack McCurry. Today we have a fantastic show for you. We have Kevin Massare of the Kevin and Jason Show, presented by Cover One. He covers the Buffalo Bills for them, so we decided to bring Kevin on in here to discuss this game Sunday against the Buffalo Bills. But first, Jack, how you doing today, man?
Doing well. Really excited to have Kevin on. It's been a while since the last time we had him on. Just for everybody's refresher, when we had Kevin on last, it was when the Bills traded Tyrod Taylor to Cleveland. So it was nice to get Kevin on here to talk about Tyrod, and it's really good to have him come on this week and talk about Buffalo, who's off to a great start, and what's going to be a tough matchup for Cleveland on Sunday.
Yeah, it is going to be a really tough matchup, and I'm excited to see what Kevin has to say. So we'll definitely preview this game for you all here in a few minutes. But first, Jack, I wanted to talk about something really quick, and I just wanted to say yesterday I had the opportunity to meet Myles Garrett. Through work, we had a function that I was selected to go to. It was a Myles Garrett fan experience down at Kent State, and I'll tell you what, for it being in the middle of the season and after practice on a Tuesday, for him to drive down there, spend 2 hours with everybody, with people ranging from kids to adults, guy is just a total class act, and for him to do that during the middle of the season is just awesome. And I had a fantastic time. He's a really good guy. I'm glad he plays for the Browns because you don't often see that kind of character come out. Personally, you don't often get to experience that firsthand, and I'm glad I did yesterday. Just hanging out with him for a couple hours was pretty cool.
Yeah, I know you were messaging me and you were telling me some stuff about Myles. That's the one thing that I don't think is enough credit, that these guys take time out of their personal lives to do these things in the community. It just shows that, there are good professional athletes out there. I know we had that situation earlier this week with Jermaine Whitehead, but you got to remember that there's guys like Myles Garrett, guys like J.C. Tretter and Mac Wilson, who spent time with our military earlier this week as well. So, there is some of the idiots out there like Jermaine Whitehead, but there's also the great ones like Myles Garrett, among others. So it's awesome that he took time out of his personal life to do that thing, and it's really cool that you got to experience that as well.
Yeah, and I actually got to – they did like a Q&A, so I asked him who is the toughest offensive lineman that he's gone up against, and why is it so difficult going up against those guys. So he responded with David Bakhtiari and also Teron Armstead of the New Orleans Saints. His reason was that the offensive linemen are not always athletic, so to say, but those two guys, with how athletic Myles is, were able to present the most challenges for Myles as a pass rusher. And Myles said that he said that before he's done, he wants to get Drew Brees. So I don't know if that's going to be able to happen or not, but Brees is definitely on his sack list. And obviously going up against a guy like Armstead, that's definitely a tough challenge.
Yeah, definitely. I think, he said that one of his goals was to sack number 12, and that's referring to Tom Brady. And obviously he got that a couple weeks ago. So it seems like he wants to get after all the top quarterbacks, not only in today's game, but in the history of the game when it comes to Drew Brees. I'm sure the other number 12, Aaron Rodgers, is on that list as well.
Oh, definitely. All right, we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to bring in Kevin to talk about Buffalo Bills, so we will be right back with that interview.
Joining us now on the 1085 Gridiron podcast is friend of the show, Kevin Massare. He is the co-host of the Kevin and Jason show, which is presented by Cover One. Kevin, it's been a while since the last time you were on. How's things going up there for you?
Doing well. I mean, things in Buffalo are going good here, at least in 2019 so far. So, taking advantage of a nicely built schedule for the team, and can't complain too much. Weather's still okay, as you guys know. Not much different there. So, just enjoying it and here for the ride halfway through this 2019 season.
Yeah, that's actually where I wanted to start. Buffalo's 6-2. Right there in the thick of the AFC playoff race. Like, I just wanted to get, what's the vibe among the fans and even, people covering the team? Like, how are they feeling about this team halfway through the season so far?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a mixed split because you're still going to have your fans that are just over the top moon, over everything to be 6-2 and their best start since their Super Bowl years in the early 90s. So you have a lot of that side of the camp, but then you have the other side that it's like, well, the DVOA says, we're the worst 6-2 team in history. They're underdogs against this 2-6 Cleveland team. There's a couple, so there's going to be those people that want to win by 30 plus each game, with the same poor schedule. New England's played the same type of schedule so far. The only difference actually so far is they've played Baltimore. The Bills haven't. They will soon. After the Bills play Cleveland, their schedule is almost identical with New England. And San Francisco's had a pretty poor schedule too. So you can only play who's in front of you. The Bills are getting it done. They're getting it done specifically defensively and really been efficient, is a good way to put it, with their offense, with a couple of new wide receiver additions. And Josh Allen has been protecting the ball better lately. So, I mean, the vibe up here it's a unique one because sometimes, I mean, you'll have anyone from, predicting long playoff runs to people that, think that they're going to somehow fail down the stretch and lose a wild card spot. So you have a pretty wide range right now, but I think in the next, and their schedule's, in their perspective, still pretty weak until they have a tough 5-game stretch at the back end of the schedule. But in the next couple of weeks, they still get a Denver game, obviously this Cleveland game, as well as Miami and the Jets here. So it's still fairly weak for them, and it would take a catastrophic event to really keep them out of one of those wild card spots.
Yeah, I think one of the big positives that I noticed with Buffalo's season was the early game you guys played against New England. Just to see that defense really showed up against the Patriots, and it was such a good game to watch, and it was a tight game throughout. And I think that's a really good indicator of how you guys have been so successful with such a strong defense so far. But let's talk about Josh Allen because him and Baker Mayfield are going to be tied being in the same draft last year. But it seems that Josh has certainly been leaps and bounds better than he was last season, while Baker has regressed a little bit. Talk about why Josh has been able to be so successful and what the Bills are doing schematically to allow him to utilize his skill set to his best potential.
Yeah, so they're doing unique things with Josh Allen. They're getting him out of the pocket where he's, he turns on his quote unquote Aaron Rodgers, and he likes to be on the move. But they're keeping him, kind of at bay where they don't want him to just think and scramble every time like he was last year. Where he was really a successful runner as a rookie, which was we knew he was athletic, but that was still a shock to see him run for a really really strong season. Really didn't lose much from Tyrod Taylor to him with his legs. So one of the things he's most successful at is his red zone. I mean, the Bills are 71% in red zone touchdown, which leads the NFL. They've been good. He doesn't turn the ball over down there for some of his, as all these quarterbacks have had lately, some of these turnovers turnover issues. He doesn't have any issues down there in the red zone. One of the other bigger things that help him is inside the 20, he's at the second highest completion percentage among the 35 qualified quarterbacks. He's 70% down there, as well as he's second highest completion percentage inside the 10. He's 75% down there, and he's the passer rating in his fourth quarter is 113.3 with 4 game-winning drives. So he's been good where it matters and when it matters. You can see a first half of Josh Allen where it might be poor, but then it's not what he doesn't, like we've used to in the past, where he'll continue to play down. He really does turn it on, whether he sees something in the defense tires down from him. Whatever happens, he's a really good quarterback in the fourth quarter. If he could play like that the other 3 quarters, he'd be in the top 10 conversation. But if you watch his film, late in the game, he's significantly better. He's completing better passes. He's taking more calculated risks, and he's been successful there in the fourth quarter. I believe in most categories, he's, first in a lot of categories in the fourth quarter. So, that's the kind of Josh Allen you're going to get here. He's been running, but a little bit more calculated too. So most Bills fans have been happy with the play of Josh Allen, especially some that didn't initially like what he had to offer last year. He had a couple of bad turnovers early in the season. Those have kind of gone away. He's put the ball on the ground a little bit. They haven't lost, out of the fumbles he's had, they haven't lost a whole lot of them, maybe 3 of the 10. So at least those aren't costing him, but he's working on his ball security, but at least when it comes through the air, he's significantly better than in 2018.
They invested a lot in the offseason to put more weapons around him compared to what he had last year as a rookie. They added Frank Gore, John Brown, and Cole Beasley in free agency, and then they drafted Devin Singletary in the middle rounds. Talk about what those additions have done to help Allen be more comfortable in this offense. Yeah,
so he had just such a bad core last year. He had Zay Jones, who's now moved on to Oakland, was probably this regime's biggest offensive fail so far. They traded up in the early second round to take one of the best pass catchers of the draft. Showed a little bit of it. We'll see what happens in Oakland, but really wasn't there for him. His best receiver was Robert Foster and Isaiah McKenzie, who are now pretty much the Bills' 4th and 5th receivers. Both have a little bit to offer, but really are more back end of roster guys. And they were talking about Andre Holmes and just a couple of other. They had Jordan Matthews at points. They had, the roster was just. They even kick the tires on Corey Coleman early on last year. So the roster wasn't great offensively. You had LaShawn McCoy, who had just a anemic year last year, as well as the offensive line was just built so poorly. With all the dead cap space the Bills had last year, they knew that they pretty much got in the playoffs the year prior. Then the last year was just trying to correct the cap situation, which they ended up doing, and that's why they're able to spend some of that cash, as you mentioned. And then they have $90 million next year on top of really no expiring deals. So the Bills are in great position, and they're going to have to really chalk up some money to Tre'Davious White here soon, and a couple of other players based on production. But they really don't have a lot of players to pay. They're going to be back in the market, probably looking for that second receiver. But Devin Singletary's in games that he's played, the team has been significantly better. They had him on the field a lot last week against Philadelphia, and they just didn't get him the ball, which was a complete mess, and the team didn't function as well. This week they said, we're going to play him the same amount of snaps. We're going to give him the ball every time he's in. He's shown that he should not be capped. He should not be limited just because you have a workhorse and Frank Gore behind him. You shouldn't be limiting Devin Singletary, and I think Cleveland's going to see a heavy dose of him, and so will pretty much the second half of their entire schedule. John Brown's been worth every bit of his $8 or $9 million contract. He's been a great wide receiver one for this team. His skill set works really well with Josh Allen. He's made a couple of clutch plays for the team, and he's pretty much him and Singletary have become fan favorites. Cole Beasley's been a great receiver out of the slot. They don't have a receiver 2. Beasley will act as that, but obviously we all know he's a receiver 3 slot guy that has scored in 3 straight games. So Josh is finding him in the red zone, increasing that, and they're getting some play out of their tight ends lately. And Dawson Knox is a developing 3rd-round pick who's been pretty good since converting from quarterback at Ole Miss. He's shown the ability to block and be a good weapon for Josh on 3rd down, as well as Tyler Kroft coming back from an injury from Cincinnati. So they like to get after it with those guys too. But the weapons are just exponentially better, and more importantly, his offensive line's kind of rebuilt. They're just starting to mesh recently. They've been pretty good in pass protection lately, and they made it an investment in Mitch Morse, who's been a top of the league center, but really more average this year. Quentin Spain's been really good at the guard spot for them. Feliciano's been a good gem from Oakland. They've really liked his play. Deion Dawkins has been good at the left tackle spot. Right tackle Cody Ford, their rookie, has been okay in stretches. He struggled a little bit, but when they play Tyan Saki, which they've been looking to do a little bit more, the team's been a lot better with their aging right tackle. But he's been playing really good football. So Josh has had a lot more to work with, a little bit more protection, and it's shown. I mean, his completion percentage has gone up 10%. The number one stat I think that most people don't realize when you think about Josh Allen is that he's 11-7 when completing games, which he's been really successful in games that he started and finished through his last 18 first regular season starts.
Well, you kind of stole my thunder because I was going to ask you about the offensive line next, but he has been sacked 21 times this year, and you mentioned that the O-line has started to mesh a little bit better. Have they done anything different that you've noticed in terms of protection to be able to allow Josh Allen some time back there? Is it that he's rolling out more to get him to throw on and run? That's helped with that. What are they doing schematically to alleviate some of the pressure off of that offensive line that is trying to get together, like you mentioned?
Yeah, so they've only returning one starter, and they're only returning 2 starters on their entire offense. One being Josh and one being Deion Dawkins, who's probably their best offensive line player, their left tackle. So each of them have rough stretches so far in the first half of the season, and that's leading to those sacks. But just recently have they really started to mesh. Yeah, they're getting him on the move more. I mean, a lot of those Josh Allen sacks are either coverage sacks or he's holding onto the ball too long, trying to make one of his Superman plays. So I would say more where they have struggled, or at least a little bit, is in the run game. They still, rank fairly high in it. They really go to it and try different, push and pull concepts and mesh concepts there on their offensive side. But yeah, they're getting him on the move. Josh is getting the ball out a little quicker. The offensive line in general is playing a little better. They don't have any injuries, which has helped. It's taken 8 games for these 5 to play together, and going to Tyan Saki, at least in a short-term period, has been a good move as they, kind of approach the playoffs here. Developing their right tackle / playing their better veteran has been a tough thing for them to handle. So Cody Ford struggled a little bit, and that's kind of where some of those lapses. You're only as good as your weakest link on the offensive line. So the team functioned, really well last week against, to me, it's not a terrible Washington defense. Their offense is unwatchable, but that defense plays well at times and have held teams like San Francisco and Minnesota to limited points. So the defense isn't the worst thing in the world, and the Bills did pretty well against that good, solid defensive line that they have. So they've been good, and they've meshed a little bit better, made a few changes. Josh gotten rid of the ball, so I think it's a combination of kind of all those things.
If you were running the Browns defense, how would you go about attacking this Bills offense come Sunday?
I think where Josh Allen struggles the most is when he has to make a quick decision. So I'm going to blitz him. He's not one of those quarterbacks like Brady who will absolutely destroy you if you blitz him. Or improvise and have a hot read. Josh is still going to try to make a big play, and he struggles against the blitz. So I think you take your chances and you come after him. I guess you could tell me how much Steve Wilkes blitzes. I guess he's blitzed more than he did in Carolina when he was with McDermott, and obviously as a head coach last year with Arizona. So I guess you'll have to, tell me what you think. But to me, it's going to be getting after Josh Allen, stopping the run. And Josh is getting a little bit better at taking what you'll give him. So don't drop back and let him look around and take a 7-yard pass to Cole Beasley, because he'll do it finally. He's taken a mold out of his AFC East opponent in Brady, where Tom will take 5 to 7 yards all day, every day. he's getting a little bit better at doing that. His yards per attempt aren't through the roof because he's taking what you're going to give him rather than looking for that play that everyone thought he'd look for. So come after him. Don't let him be comfortable. If the Bills are picking up those blitzes and he's making a good read, then it is what I think that kind of is what it is. But to me, I just wouldn't let him stand back there and be comfortable because he's actually been good in that situation.
Yeah, I would say that, like, just based on the last few games, the Browns can't stop the run. So obviously Gore and Singletary would be like, if just run the ball with them and that'll be good. They do blitz a lot. It's just hasn't been as effective unless you're Myles Garrett. He's the only guy with double-digit sacks. No one else has more than 3. Okay. So, I mean, run the football. That seems to be the weakness right now. And even if you do blitz, obviously Allen's got that mobility. I mean, Denver smartened up on Sunday and allowed Brandon Allen to get mobile, and he was able to extend plays and get a couple first downs. So that would definitely be the way to go if you're Buffalo for sure.
Yeah, and you got to run the creeper pressure too is one thing that the Bills struggled with against Philadelphia, where Josh is mobile and he's able to get out there. But if you have a blitzer that he can't recognize, something really pretty solid rather than a solid, if you're coming at him at a corner, if you're coming at him with a cornerback blitz, he's going to recognize that and probably take off. If you're in man coverage, man coverage isn't the best against Josh Allen because of his ability to get outside and really break contain. One of his biggest plays last week was because he got outside the pocket, looked like he was going to run for about 10 yards, set up in a really good field goal position, but instead, threw a dime to John Brown for, on a 3rd and 17. So that's the kind of stuff that's scary, is that when you get Josh there right at the line of scrimmage, he's got 2 options. He can pretty much take the 5 to 10 yards every time, or he might look to throw that ball. So it's really challenging for a defense. So that's why you need that kind of that creeper pressure where he's not sure who's dropping back, if a defensive lineman's coming off the line and you're sending a linebacker, or what's happening there. As well, if I don't ever think it's a bad idea to quarterback spy him. It might take a little bit away from the run game, but if you're saying, it struggled anyways, to me, spying Josh Allen's as important as anything you can do, because there is games and stretches when he says, you know what, if they're going to give me, these running lanes, I'm going to take them. And he's especially effective as you get to 3rd down. I mean, you won't see him take off in 1st and 2nd down anymore, like he used to. But when you get to the 3rd down situations, he's a tough player to defend, and he's not always perfect. He doesn't always make the right throw or the right read, but he's very challenging in those situations where he's outside of the pocket. You don't know what's going to happen. It's kind of backyard football, and he's got a couple of plays. You can run it, throw it, take a short pass. It's tough. I mean, I've seen some of the better defenses struggle there in that situation. So it's all about getting Josh uncomfortable in situations that he's not used to. Come after him, but as you know, the Bills are going to run the ball out still too. They were committed to it against Washington, especially with Devin Singletary coming on. The Bills' offensive game plan is going to be simple. It's going to be get Singletary in space, pound Gore. And run creative, pinch and pull, which they love to do, is kind of, pitch it out to Singletary to the left, pull their offensive lineman and kind of get a lead block out in front, on the edge.
How well do Josh Allen and the interior of that offensive line deal with A-gap pressure? Because where the Browns had some success last week against Denver was when they brought Schobert and Mack Wilson through both of the A-gaps. How well did they deal with that?
I wouldn't say particularly well, but I wouldn't say it's been a big problem for them. Their interior offensive line has been pretty solid. Probably their 3 better players are there. Actually, believe it or not, when Singletary and Gore and pass protection, they've both been very solid. So if they have to both step up to kind of help out there in that A-gap pressure, Josh has been good at checking reads as well as running a zone read. So sometimes if he sees that A-gap pressure, he might pull it out of the belly of Singletary and take it around the edge. So the Bills, I wouldn't say will struggle there particularly, but if you clog it up, that's only going to help you because it's going to take away some portion of their game. They love to run the ball up the middle with Gore. They struggled at it last week. Washington made a really concerted effort to stop that. Frank Gore was 0 for 5 in 1 yard to go situations. Josh Allen was 2 for 2 and Singletary was 2 for 2. So because that's solely due to the A-gap pressure. So once again, Allen would take the ball and kind of go on his own jet sweep, or he would, make a pitch to Singletary, who converted. So they're going to try to be creative. So if they see the Browns doing that, like they noticed Washington doing it, they're going to get creative down there, and they're going to probably pull it out of the belly of the running back and set something else up or call a check there. So I think it's if they take that away, that's a good first step, and then it's from there stopping, what the Bills will counterpunch with.
Let's talk about this Bills defense. Obviously, right now they rank third in scoring defense. They have been one of the top defenses this year. They've kept guys around like Jerry Hughes. Obviously, Shaq Lawson hasn't panned out so far as a first-round pick. They've been able to sprinkle guys in like Trent Murphy, picking up Jordan Phillips, and then obviously their secondary is up there among the top in the football in the NFL. Talk about this defense and how they've been able to be so successful this year.
So there's a couple things that go into that. The Bills are particularly pretty solid at every position group. So do they have that Khalil Mack beastly defensive end? No, that's probably their one weakness. But they don't have any specific holes on their roster. So especially defensively, when Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano are full strength and playing, it's a really good linebacking core that can get after the ball. They like what they've had out of Levi Wallace, their undrafted free agent from Alabama last year. Tre'Davious White has one of the lowest percentages when thrown at. They have a solid nickel in Taron Johnson, who's backed up by Siren Neal, and probably one of the best safety combos in Poyer and Hyde, who just can wreck games at any time. The defensive line's been really solid for them. Once again, it's no breakers. They like Shaq Lawson in a reserve role / spot role. He's been really good in run defense. So he's not the pass rusher the team thought. He's actually one of the only players to make it from regime to regime, which is quite impressive that he was, although not really panned out to his top first-round pick status, but he was designated as one of the players that Sean McDermott wanted from past regimes of Doug Whaley. So it's interesting that they kind of have him that third defensive end role, but he's been really good against the run. Jordan Phillips with 6 sacks from the defensive tackle spot, which I think, to me, he's played well, but it's all, a lot of people knock Star Lotulelei for not having those stats, but I mean, Jordan Phillips has 6 sacks really because of it. Jerry Hughes, still one of PFF's favorite pass rushers. Depending on the game, he'll rack up the numbers. His sack numbers come in stretchers, so he'll have 2 or 3 or 4 sacks, and all of a sudden he'll have 8. It doesn't make any sense, but that's kind of how he's always been. But he's always getting the pressures. And Trent Murphy's been, once again, just a run-of-the-mill, solid left defensive end for them. And they love what they get out of their veteran Lorenzo Alexander as kind of a pass rusher / third linebacker if they're not in nickel. So the defense doesn't have any holes. More importantly, they don't have any injuries anywhere across the defense. They've lost Harrison Phillips, and that's kind of their one thing they've been trying to replace was that run stuffing defensive tackle. They're getting the penetration. The run stuff has been their one weakness, just really in a 2-week stretch, though. So the run thing is the thing that everyone likes to point to right now for the Bills, but they did a significant job at stopping the run pretty much for the first 6 games. Something happened at the bye where the Eagles saw something on tape and they just started running the ball up the middle, and the Bills are finally going to adjust to it. They signed Corey Liuget, and they'll make some schematic changes, but they've been really solid at not allowing points. Just did a bang up job against Brady. Stopped the run there first and foremost, and really he had a really poor game against the Bills. In one that they should have won, it took a blocked punt for New England to win that. The Bills beat them 10-9 otherwise. So they're going to be a defense that not many offenses are going to score a lot of points on. The Eagles took advantage of some really bad weather here, and it was like 50-mile-an-hour winds. No one was able to throw the ball. And just a few missed plays and a Josh Allen fumble where the Bills were winning pretty much the whole first half. So that score's a little bit more lopsided than the game was. So they've been solid. I mean, that's the best thing you can say. This team's going to ride their defense to the playoffs, and once they get Lamar Jackson under their belt and some more of these offenses, and even Cleveland to an extent that many people are still waiting to show what the Bills defense can even do against like a Cleveland. I mean, quite frankly, they're underdogs, right? So this is a good first step for them, even records aside.
Before the Browns traded for Odell Beckham Jr., one of the guys that it was rumored the Browns were going to go after in the first round was Ed Oliver. Talk about what he has done so far this season and what you have liked that you've seen from him.
Yeah, so he has a really high win rate. So I think I saw it was at 20% of the time he's beating his offensive lineman. He doesn't have the gaudy stats yet, which many people are, especially box score stats are nervous about. He only has 1 sack so far. Jordan Phillips started over him, last week, but that was more to the fact that Jordan Phillips is playing out of his mind. So it's kind of a weird thing where Jordan Phillips are kind of stealing some of those stats from Ed Oliver. Ed's winning a lot of the times, but for some reason, the bigger plays happen when Phillips are in. So Bill's media and people are trying to figure that out as we speak, what's going on there. But he's been rock solid as a rookie. I don't know what you can expect from a guy, coming from Houston, taken where he was in 9th overall. And I know everyone wanted him to be Aaron Donald right off the bat. He's shown flashes and has the ability maybe down the road. So we're going to see how he finishes the second half of the year, but he wins a lot. He puts in high energy, but yeah, I mean, the stats aren't there yet. So unfortunately it is a stat game and sacks matter. And some of that stuff does come back to you. So there's been a little bit of hey, is he going to produce at the level we thought he would? Phillips is, the rest of the defense is. When is Ed Oliver going to show up? Because we're going to have to pay Phillips. We're going to have to pay, Jerry Hughes got extended again. So Shaq Lawson will probably be kept as the third defensive end. Jordan Phillips will obviously be kept as the third defensive tackle. So, everyone's waiting for that splash game from Ed Oliver, which it's going to come. So I don't know necessarily it's going to be against Cleveland, but the big Ed Oliver game's coming, and it's probably coming in the next couple of weeks.
How has Jordan Poyer been for you guys? Obviously, he's drafted by Philly and then came to Cleveland halfway through his rookie year and kind of settled in as one of our starting safeties his last couple years in Cleveland before his serious injury that he suffered. And then he ended up signing with Buffalo. Like, how has he been for you? Because I liked his game when he was at Cleveland and was unfortunate when they let him go, but he's turned into quite the ball player for you guys.
Yeah, so this is how I like to put it for anyone that's a baseball fan out there, and I have the listeners who may or may not get the reference, but he's basically the Bills version of DJ LeMahieu. He is a guy that no one expected a ton from, was a rotational guy when he came in. Fit early, took a starting role really early on in the McDermott days a couple years ago, and signed for pretty decent money, still under contract, and one of our best deals that we have. He's going to need a new deal here semi-soon. Still under contract next year for a pretty reasonable rate. So the Bills got a big win there. But he's been the Bills, I would say, one of their best players all around. I mean, they signed them both in the same offseason, but Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer have both not only started to play together, in the last 2.5 years, but they've been they're part of the reason the Bills are 6-2, or a big part of it, I couldn't say. Jordan Poyer has been one of the Bills' best players. He's everywhere. He can cover the tight end. He's great in run support. Micah Hyde, same from the same free agent class. Green Bay didn't want him. The Bills paid him more than Poyer, but I mean, he's a ball hawk. He should be a Pro Bowler. Definitely, they're probably their best defensive player. I mean, the safety tandem is really, really good, guys. I mean, that's the one thing I can point to on this team that's probably better than most teams by far, and that's their safety combo. And they both play together. They know what each other are going to be. I mean, it's magic at times when you see a receiver get open and you think, oh no, you beat the corner, but it's planned that they're in a deep cover too, where Micah Hyde comes from nowhere and picks the ball off, or more impressively in the Giants game when he absolutely lit up the receiver who was wide open down the seam, looked like a touchdown, but Hyde came out of nowhere. Absolutely wrecked. I believe it was either Sterling Shepard or Darius Slayton. And it was impressive. And that was the first time that most Bills fans were like, all right, the safety combo just doesn't get scored on often. So they're particularly good in pass coverage. They're both really decent in run support, but the best thing you can do is kind of get those guys up in the box, kind of get them to bite on run and maybe try to get them. But they're both really good if they're both in the game. I mean, Jordan Poyer is probably they're both probably two of the top 5 Bills players. So it was a steal. I mean, it was a good, John McDermott find, and it's just a perfect fit in this cover 2 defense.
It's interesting that you mentioned, maybe the Browns getting the Bills defense to bite on the run, because that was a topic going around Twitter today. and has for the last couple of days. The Browns and Baker Mayfield have been very poor in getting opposing defenses to bite on the play action, despite how good Nick Chubb has been this season. The quality of the fake, I think, has something to do with that. They're just not biting on it. But this Browns offense, besides David Njoku, is pretty much at full strength now because not only do they have Nick Chubb, but this week is a return of Kareem Hunt. How do you expect this Bills defense to, there's playmakers everywhere. You have the big names, Odell, Jarvis Landry, Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb. You have guys like Antonio Callaway and Rashard Higgins, who's been MIA, but at some point I would think he's going to get out there. So there's a lot of guys on Cleveland's offense that you're going to have to account for. Do you expect the Bills to be able to contain them all?
No, I don't. So as good as their defense has been, you pretty much matched Trey White on Odell Beckham. I think that's a really good battle, one that we'll see how that turns out. The safety play is going to have to, the guys we just referenced are going to have to come up big in this game. And I think that you're going to see the Bills bait Baker to beat them. I think that's going to be their game plan. It's what they did against Washington, where they gave up Adrian Peterson 5 or 6 yard runs. His numbers got gaudy, but at the same time, the score wasn't going up. So I would imagine, as much as they respect Chubb and potentially Hunt this week, they're going to still make Baker beat them, and they might really commit to stopping Chubb and really focusing on that. And Odell needs to beat Tre'Davious White, and they're going to have to win out of the slot with Hyde, with Taron Johnson covering Jarvis Landry. It's interesting because the Bills, you'll notice that the Bills, you'll watch them and be like, okay, I see what they're doing. They aren't going to particularly do whatever they can to stop you in the backfield. The Bills are very much a defense that are going to give you 4 yards. That's just how they play. They're going to be like 3, 4, 5 here, 3, 4, 5 there. And if you're patient enough to keep taking it, that's where you're going to take a win. And the Eagles were, and they've probably been the only team that was on the Bills schedule, including New England, that was like, we'll take 4 yards, we'll take 4 yards, we'll take 4 yards, we'll take 4 yards, and we're not going to get antsy. And use Jarvis Landry as much as you can. The Bills I think it was 14 or 15 catches to Jamison Crowder and the Jets, and he didn't go over 100 yards. But the Jets had some success with it, still getting those 5 yard plays. And Levi Wallace, their second corner, is probably going to back up and allow you to take 4 or 5 yard, throws in front of him. Tre'Davious White will probably be more in the face of Beckham, but at the same time, if Odell wants to take 4 or 5 yards, Tre'Davious White will give it to him. He's done it all season against lesser receivers. So if the Browns are patient there and willing to take it, they're going to have success. If they're going to try to go deep and they're going to try to make big splashy plays, it's not going to happen against this Bills defense. I can say that 100%. The only big play that they've had was a missed tackle and a Miles Sanders touchdown run of like 60 yards or something like that. But it's pretty much been their only big play that they've let up this season, and that was in the run game. So Nick Chubb's going to have to find room against a box. I'm willing to bet the Bills might stack and make Baker beat him. But if he's going to try to make the splash play, beat him deep, try to find those seams, Bills are going to cover that. So take those 4 or 5. It's going to get frustrating. I'm telling you, you'll notice, be like, all right, the Bills are giving us this. And if you continue to take those, you're going to have success. If you get impatient and the Bills score on offense or whatever the case may be, that's where the Bills will feast. So stay patient, regardless of the score. Take those 4 or 5 yards, because Leslie Frazier will admit to giving it up. Even the one person that did it the second best beside Carson Wentz was Ryan Fitzpatrick, because he took 5 and 6 yards the entire game. So will Baker do that? You guys would have to answer that question better than I can.
I would say not. He's been very. Maybe he would. He's been very one read ish this season, but the offensive line struggling has kind of forced him into quick bad decisions. So he's not been very patient, at least in my opinion. They've run a lot of stuff where they're sending 2-3 receivers down the field, and they expect to hit those big plays. He has not seen tight ends or running backs out in the flat a lot to where they can get those 4 or 5 yards right away. So I think in that aspect of what you described, I think Baker could play right into their hands based on what we've seen so far this season.
Yeah, and that's what they'll be hoping for, honestly. And if he's patient and he flips the script, that's where the Bills will start to get on their heels a little bit more. And eventually, it's Browns on the 20, and, the Bills will have to play a little bit more aggressively. But, pretty much from 20 to 20, they play a soft cover 2, making the quarterback make a read, and they're going to confuse you in different zones. They might switch it up to man randomly, but not much. They don't blitz a whole lot. They might run a creeper pressure where, once again, they'll send a fourth player, but they're not necessarily bringing 5. But they don't bring those 5 at a lot. They do get a lot more defensive back sacks than most teams that I've watched. So a lot of their safeties, corners have sacks. They'll send Trey, had a big sack last week. Taron Johnson's a really good blitzer out of the nickel. That's one thing to watch for as Browns fans. They love to, if they'll blitz that nickel. And Taron Johnson specifically, I think PFF has him as one of the best rated blitzers from the cornerback spot. So that's something to watch. And you'll notice the other 2 corners will drop off, and if Baker can read it and throw 5-6 yards, Levi will also give it up. But he's particularly good in coverage. He has really good breaks. Had a really good one against the Eagles and Alshon Jeffrey to cause a punt. Alshon looked wide open, and Levi Wallace came from nowhere to light him up. So that's how the Bills are going to play. They're going to basically say, we're going to try to be creative if we blitz. We're going to try to stop the run the best that we can. And if Baker's not going to take those 4 to 6, it's going to be a long game. But if he does, they're going to have success. They're going to have a lot of success.
So, Kevin, as we head towards the second half of the season, how do you think the rest of the season will pan out for Buffalo? And among the AFC contenders, where would you rank them currently?
They still have a soft schedule, so even if something happens against Cleveland, maybe Cleveland plays high and hot, Bills struggle maybe on the road. They've actually 3-0 on the road, so that's something to note. They've played much better on the road than they have at home at times, which we're still all trying to figure out. But which is good because they have some road games coming up here. They have a tough game on Thanksgiving against Dallas. It'll be an interesting one to see which Dallas team shows up and which Bills defense. You're going to get that dominant Brady defense, or you're going to struggle against Zeke Elliott. So I think that I have them, actually not even knowing what's going to happen in this Cleveland game, which is honestly one of the Bills' biggest toss-ups because they're just such a hard, honestly, guys, it's such a hard team to read over there in Cleveland that I have no idea. They're favored. Cleveland's favored, and I have no idea what's going to happen if the right Bills team shows up in the not patient Mayfield. It's going to go in the Bills' hand. If he is patient, see some stuff on tape, and is like Philly was in the same spot almost, where they were like do or die, need this win. There's a lot of talk around us, and we don't like being in that spot. But at the same time, the Bills are probably happy that they're underdogs because they're like, we're 6-2 and we're not favored in this game. So that might work into their hand a little bit too. So I think that they finish 5-3 here. I think either they're going to lose to Dallas. They're definitely. I'm going to have them losing to New England in the second game. We just cannot get. As I told you before, we just can't. Not a lot of the AFC East cannot figure out how to beat New England. A lot of teams can't, but we have to play them twice a year every year. So that's going to be a loss. And I'm going to chalk up Baltimore to a loss. So saying that they beat Cleveland, they're going to go 5-3. If they don't, they'll be 4-4, and she'll be enough at 10-6. So that's why it's kind of a toss-up game where 10-6 might be it should be enough here in the AFC. If they beat Cleveland, they'll be 11-5 and be in okay shape. Outside of that, they really don't play anyone too challenging. They get another Miami, another Jets, Denver at home specifically. So that's where I have them, and I'll have them in that first wild card spot, probably in a game against the AFC South. So we'll have to see. They match up particularly well against Houston or Indianapolis, so that's kind of what I'm rooting for. But we'll see what happens. As long as Baltimore keeps running away with it, that's kind of what I anticipate happening here. And a really good 4v5 game in the playoffs. That's kind of how I see it playing out right now for the Bills.
Yeah, with what they're sitting at right now at 6-2, if they would it be a unmitigated disaster if they somehow miss the playoffs? Maybe go 3-5 and miss the playoffs?
Yeah, I think it would be safe to say 4-4 will get them in, and they have the schedule to do. Especially with the schedule, it'll be an utter disappointment. 4-4 would mean they would lose to Cleveland, wouldn't be able to take a game against Baltimore, New England, and lose to Dallas. That's kind of the way to get to 4-4. And if they lose, then Miami, New York, Denver, then they're 3-5. You're right. Yeah, it would be between the Cleveland loss and then compound it with a Jets, Dolphins, or Denver loss. They're particularly, yes, it would be a colossal fail to have a not an easy schedule, but a winnable schedule, at least for 4-4, and not be able to do that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to say that'd be a pretty bad fail to end 9-7, even though there'd be fans at the beginning of the year that would have said, 9-7, that's still a shot at this thing. Win a weak AFC, I would take it, but the Bills have beaten who they're supposed to. It's a tricky game against Cleveland here for them. Outside of that, they get Denver at home, which is probably the next hardest game, beside the three quote unquote losses that we're going to give them. So, and that's so they'd have to lose those games that they can't win, and then lose Cleveland and Denver. I don't know, man. That would be a pretty bad way to finish the season.
Yeah. So as we get on out of here, Kevin, we're going to go ahead and give our predictions for Sunday's game. I'll let you take it away first. How do you think this game's going to shape out?
It's a tough. I've mentioned a couple times here today. It's a tough one. I mean, I've watched randomly a lot of Cleveland this year. I still believe in the potential that their offense has. I know they have some injuries on defense. They cut their crazy safety. They, I don't know if Randall's going to play, or Olivier Vernon's going to play, which would help the Bills a lot in those cases. I think it might be a more offensive game than many others might. I don't know what the weather's supposed to be like, but I mean, I have the Bills narrowly winning this one. Just off of that, I think they're playing really good football. I don't think they're going to like that they're not favored in this, or at least even in this one. I have a narrow 23-20 victory over the Bills, but honestly, I wouldn't be shocked at any scenario in this. I could see 27-20 Cleveland. If they're off, once again, if Cleveland's offense is ticking, I don't know. I think that I don't know that the Bills will be able to do enough to stop that. So we'll see. I mean, I think Kareem Hunt could be a big boost. It's a really big unknown for me. You'll have to tell me if Kitchens does the right stuff here. I know there's been some criticism there. So I got 23-20 just out of pure how well the Bills are playing defensively, efficiently on offense, but not much is going to take for that to flip to 27-20 Cleveland.
I think you are way more optimistic than we are about how close this game is going to be. I mean, it's just been such a disaster so far this season with not being able to get everybody involved correctly. And now they're adding another piece in with Kareem Hunt. I know he's been able to practice for a couple of weeks, but, they just haven't found a way to consistently get Odell the ball. They've gone away from the running game way too quickly when it's been a success. Last week was the first game where they had no penalties on offense and no turnovers. So that's the one positive thing that the Browns have been able to do. They were 0 for 5 in the red zone last week in terms of scoring touchdowns, where you mentioned Buffalo has been so good. So I think all the points of this game point to Buffalo winning this one. It's unfortunate because so far this season, I'm a season ticket holder, so far I'm 0-3 going to games this year. But I think the Buffalo's going to win this one around 26-17, I'll say.
Yeah, I'm not feeling optimistic about it either. Just because the offense seems to be out of whack. Kitchen seems to be in over his head. I am interested and intrigued to see how they're going to utilize Kareem Hunt. Nick Chubb seemed optimistic. He said he's willing to, share the backfield with Hunt, which is good because Chubb is the ultimate team player and been so impressed with him. So definitely intrigued to see what Hunt's going to do. But until Baker shows any form of consistency and, limits the turnovers, which he did last week, but just couldn't get the ball in the end zone, I'm going to go Bills 24, Browns 13.
Very interesting.
Yeah, like I said, we are not very confident because, like I said, it's been a long season. They're in a stretch where they're playing 3 games in 10 days. They end up playing Pittsburgh next Thursday night. So if they lose both these ones coming up, some serious changes are going to be made, and it's like an annual tradition of a Browns coach getting fired after a Pittsburgh game. So that's what we're staring in the face right now. So look, I like I said, it's been very tough this season. The only hope I have is the defense, who has played well, but the running defense is where Buffalo is going to be able to attack us. So it's just going to be another long game, I think, and unfortunately I might be leaving the stadium on Sunday 0-4.
Yeah, I forgot that Cleveland hasn't won at home, right? Isn't that right? They're 0-3 at home?
Yeah, 0-3 at home. Wow.
And the Bills are 3-0 on the road, so maybe it would be better for this game to be in at New Era Field then for Cleveland purposes.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
But the Bills have come out with a pretty good road game plan. I think they're committed to the run. The noise doesn't seem to affect them. Josh Allen, if he's not, it's all on for the Bills' perspective to wrap it up. It's all on Josh Allen. If he doesn't have a pivotal turnover, the Bills just aren't going to lose the game. If he does and tries to make a play, he's flipped games single-handedly where the Bills were destroying teams on both sides of the ball and has a bad turnover, like we saw in New England, and then compounded with a punt block. So that's really, you're going to need to get him to commit to a turnover, or the Bills will be pretty sufficient in this one. And Baker's got to take what the Bills are going to give him, because go turn on Ryan Fitzpatrick. He took 7 yards to Preston Williams, like 12 plays of that game. So if Baker can do that and he doesn't bite into the Bills' hand of trying to beat Hyde over the top or trying to throw at Tre'Davious White all game, I think that then they'll actually get some success, and just all you can do is turn on the Eagles tape and try to turn it around. But do you see Kitchens? Is he done if they lose the Bills? Pittsburgh, is there any way he saves his first year, or not likely?
I mean, the only way I think he could save his job at this point is if they go on a mega run down the stretch. I think he gets the whole year. I mean, unless we lose this game, we lose the Pittsburgh game, and somehow we lose to Miami, would be like the only way I see him not making the entire season. But I do think that Dorsey wants to give him the entire season just to see if anything gets better at this point. It seems like we're stuck in neutral, but also starting to make that slide downward. So if he can make any progress, maybe he somehow makes it to next year. But at this point, I don't think he makes it through past this season.
Does he get along with Baker? How is that dynamic?
Freddie and Baker? Well, according to everything, Baker was like one of the guys that really pushed for Freddie to get the job because of the success they had at the end of last year. There's been the rumor going around that Ken Zampese, who was the QB coach, seemed to be the mastermind behind Baker's success, and that's why he's fallen off. But we truly don't know why it's been such a disaster so far.
My big theory is the communication between Freddie, Bucket, and Baker is what's causing all this. I know, when you have two guys inputting on the same offense and you have a rookie head coach that is calling plays, the communication is not always going to be there. And one thing you'll notice, Kevin, when you're watching the game on Sunday, pay attention to how many times the Browns are getting up to the line of scrimmage on offense with 5-6 seconds left on the play clock, not allowing Baker Mayfield to see the field and digest what he's seeing in front of him. That has been the biggest thing that we've all been griping about, is that there has been such a lack of communication in getting plays in that have not allowed Baker to see what's on the field in front of them. And that's why when they go no huddle and they go into that tempo kind of offense, they have success, is because they're getting up to the line of scrimmage. He's able to see everything. You still have 25 seconds on the play clock. So when their offense slows down and you see that play clock expiring, that's when you know it's trouble for the Browns offense and they're going to have a hard time moving the football.
Yeah, I would definitely notice that. That's interesting where it's kind of the opposite, where Aaron Rodgers takes every second of that clock and you know he's doing something good with it. So it'll be interesting to notice that. And the offensive line's kind of been a downfall for you guys too, right?
To a degree, yeah, but then the stat popped up this week that Baker's been the worst quarterback in the league when he's not feeling any pressure, and 10 of his 12 interceptions have been when he's had a clean pocket. So,
really?
Yeah, so I think, the offensive line has had its struggles, but I think more of the struggles have been on Baker and, the play calling. Granted, a lot of the interceptions have been on tip balls, but Baker hasn't been, reading the defenses right. Much like Anthony said, more times than not, the play clock's been like winding down as soon as he gets up to the line of scrimmage. So it's just been a unmitigated disaster so far over here in Cleveland. But hopefully things can get turned around here in the second half.
Yeah,
it seems like it.
I don't know if you saw the play at the end of the game last week between the Browns and the Broncos, where you saw Odell running down the sideline in single coverage. Not only did that happen on that play, but another half-second wait by Mayfield. Antonio Callaway was running wide open, and also Demetrius Harris was running wide open, and Baker chose to throw it into double coverage to Jarvis Landry. It was incomplete. So he's just not seeing the field very well. I don't know if it's because the offensive line early on was giving him shell shock a little bit, but it's been like that all season long with him.
Yeah, interesting. Kind of the reverse player of Josh Allen right now, who's been really well with a clean pocket and struggles with pressure. So it'll be a tale of this battling of this top 10 quarterback class that has already seen Rosen fall out of it, and Jackson easily move into the top conversation, and Darnold see ghosts, right? So it's left to Allen and Baker to kind of clean up the mess, I guess, right?
Yeah, and for my sake, I hope the Browns win this game, because I do not want to listen to another week of sports talk radio of we should have drafted Josh Allen number 1 last year. Because if Josh and the Bills win this game on Sunday, that's all we're going to hear until they play the Steelers on Thursday night. I don't want to hear it.
I know. I feel for you there. I can hear that already, Josh. You're going to say Josh took it out on the Browns and all this and that. Oh my gosh, I can only imagine the sports talk storyline to feel for you guys if that's the case.
Yeah, well, this week it's been, the Browns should have took Saquon Barkley at 1 and Lamar Jackson at 4. I mean, that's been the narrative this week after Lamar punked the Patriots. So that's the state.
It's not a bad draft though. If he would have done that, I actually thought there was some chance you guys were going to take Saquon and do your quarterback at 4. Hindsight now, I might have done that.
Yeah, I mean, there's still hope for Baker. You just gotta wonder what's gonna happen here with the coaches, because if we do change him, it'll be his 4th head coach already in 2 seasons. So, it's not a good place of continuity and success. But Baker's got the talent. He's just got to get out of this funk.
Yeah. He has all the tools. It's just a matter of coaching at this point, utilizing those tools correctly, and getting him to where he needs to be.
I would think unfortunately, I know you don't want another coach, but I think you saw what happened with McVay coming in for Goff, and I think the same thing needs to happen in Cleveland. I just think once that you show enough on tape and enough, it's the NFL. These guys are pros. I don't know that relationship will continue, especially if there's that Zampese talk. I don't know. To me, on the outside perspective, I would say that you're right. I would move on from him if I see a Bills and Pittsburgh loss. I wouldn't know why at 2-8 you would hold him. You guys might have a better reason for it. But from the outside source, I would just say if they can't get it done against the Bill this week against the Bills at home, and then Pittsburgh, which you guys are probably at least even with, I think it might be probably one of the main reasons, especially with the talent you guys have on now with the healthy offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and that's why all the Mike McCarthy talk has started to ramp up again, because there was all that talk before they hired Freddie, and now there's a guy on the radio yesterday talking about how McCarthy's watching tape every week. He's assembling the staff. All that is starting to ramp up, and with the connections with John Dorsey, our GM,
oh wow,
it's getting ready to run rapid, especially with the lack of success that Freddie and the Browns have had this season. So
I wouldn't hate it. I would think it would be a good thing for the Browns, honestly, but that's from an outsider's perspective. I think your team would function a lot better next year with that kind of setup, but I guess you still have 8 games to see if that's true and if Kitchens can save it. But I just see these errors in Cleveland coming up again, even if they do have a little mini run to put him, 7-9 or save his 8-8, save his job. I know you guys have a soft schedule, but I just think the best thing that can happen is you get one more high pick or high-ish pick. You add to that talent you guys have on offense, and you come back with a good coaching staff next year. I think there's a means to the end there, but don't do what the Bills normally do, is kind of the opposite. Be 2-6 like you are now, win 4 or 5 of these games down the stretch, go to 7-9, 8-8, get a bad pick, keep the staff, and just stay in this 6-10 to 8-8 stretch forever. I would be rooting for that coaching turnover and one more maybe playmaker on defense maybe, and continuing to grow that with a high pick and some salary. And that's what I would look at from an outsider with no dog in the fight. But I mean, maybe Kitchens has more to offer than I'm giving him for the first 8 weeks.
That's what we call the Eric Mangini rule, winning your last 5 or 6 games and
don't do it.
Sticking around for another season. But the sad thing is that this team has the talent to win out. I just don't think there's zero chance that happens. I mean, I'll still argue that on paper this team has as much talent as anybody else in the NFL. It's just a matter of getting it all together and corrected and being able to go out. And I know we've heard this word so much in Cleveland with Freddie Kitchens, and being able to execute correctly and getting it all together. They had the talent to win. It's just a matter of getting there.
I agree with that, man. I think you guys have a lot of talent, and then that purely goes to scheme and coaching. I mean, there's nothing else to me. And that's, once again, I don't have a dog in the fight. Don't dislike Freddie Kitchens. I'd rather the Bills be able to play a team with talent like you guys have with coaching questions than you have a good coach there this week. I mean, the Bills need this game for AFC race to have that AFC win. There's a lot on the table for them to get that, especially with a couple of harder games, quote unquote harder games. But this was a hard game for the Bills coming up, and they're coming in with a lot to prove themselves. They're underdogs, and Josh Allen has his own reason to maybe think he should have been in a Cleveland Brown, maybe be better than Baker. So I think you'll see the best of Allen, and if not, the Bills will lose. So I think you'll either see a really, this is what I'm going to leave the pod with. I think you guys are going to see a really good Josh Allen, or he's gonna push it, and he's going to lead right into the Browns' hand, and they're going to take a loss for it.
Well, Kevin, we thank you so much for your time. Go ahead and plug everything you got going on your end as we get on out of here.
Sure, yeah, sure thing. You can follow me at Kevin Massare, Massare on Twitter. You can, unfortunately, it might work this week. You'll get a bunch of Bills takes, and I know I'm positive here on this pod, but I am very realistic, and you'll notice that I will not love everything the Bills do. They have their own coaching issues at times. First talent, like you mentioned, first talented as the Bills' defenses, they don't always play. Being beat by the Dolphins' run game isn't always the number one thing I like to see as a Bills fan. So you'll get a realistic take there. You can find me on the Kevin and Jason show, where we'll pretty much have a pod just like you guys do, talking about stuff and having guests on. So you can check us out over there. But really love coming on with you guys. I'm not sure if we're on the schedule next year. I guess it depends where you finish, if you finish second or not. But it's always great to play the Browns. It's always good. You guys expecting Bills fans there this week, or kind of what's the word?
Yeah, I think so. Especially with how the season has panned out so far. You're sitting at 2-6. That last game against Seattle, there were a ton of Seahawks fans. So I would imagine that this stadium is going to maybe be a third no, maybe 25% to a third Bills fans, I would think, especially with the short drive that it is. So I think the Bills Mafia, as they call it, is going to raid Cleveland this Sunday, and it's going to be a bipartisan crowd.
I've been at the last two. I won't be at this one. I have a great time over there with you guys. I think I was partying on one of the lots by the water.
A beauty lot.
Yeah, I think so. It was a great time with some of your fans. But then when I get in, man, you guys are even as bad or worse than Bills. I got a bunch of stuff thrown on me. But it's a good time. I mean, there's nothing we can say from as being Bills fan, how crazy we are. So, but I enjoy it there. You guys have a nice stadium. I always like being in Cleveland. I go to Indians games too. So you guys have a cool little stretch there. And the Bills fans will travel, especially at 6-2. You'll probably see a lot of them eating up that secondary market. So they're fun. Go enjoy, some tailgating with them or have some fun with them. They're a good time. Just, they're much like Cleveland. Just they're going to get a bad rap too. But hopefully they'll respect the stadium and give you guys some grief back.
Yeah, as long as we could get out of there on Sunday with all of our tables intact, I think we'll be okay. I think that's the big thing.
Yeah, no, there's going to be more losses to tables this week than the NFL team. So, yeah, this is a good time there. I've enjoyed my time. I've been once again going to the two Browns games I've been to.
All right, Kevin, we absolutely appreciate you coming on, and hopefully it's not a long time again. Maybe potentially if things can piece together, we could meet in the playoffs. But I would say that's unlikely this season. But hopefully we can get you back on here soon, and we appreciate you having you on. And have a good rest of your night, and good luck on Sunday.
Thank you so much. And yeah, hey, you never know if you guys catch Baltimore in AFC North 4 versus 5. You never know, I guess, right? Especially if you guys capitalize finally.
Yeah, for sure. All right,
thanks,
Kevin.
Guys.
We appreciate it. Well, we absolutely appreciate Kevin coming on, talking to us, giving a lowdown on the Bills this Sunday. I know we all think the Bills are going to win this one, but with where the Browns are sitting at currently, I'm not very shocked that that's where we all ended up with this one. But before we get on out of here, our 1085 Pick'em Challenge has been going on all season long. I am back up to a 4-point lead after going 10-4 last week. Jack was 6-8, so he had a terrible week in terms of he couldn't have gone 6-8. That's wrong on your part. It had to have been 6-6 since. No, maybe 6-8 is right. I don't know. I'm reading this all wrong. Anyway, I have a 4-point lead. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick the game, tomorrow night's game, the Thursday night game, the Los Angeles Chargers against the Raiders. Jack, who do you got winning this one?
I'm actually going to go with the Chargers on this one. They played a great game Sunday against the Green Bay Packers, which I think showed a lot across the NFL landscape. The Chargers are one of these teams that are always one of the dark horse Super Bowl picks early on in the season. And, they struggled out of the gate. They obviously fired their offensive coordinator, and Anthony Lynn took more of a hands-on approach on the offense, and it helped, especially against a tough Packers defense. I would expect them that they could be one of these teams that gets on a run here in the second half. And while Oakland has played well this year, I'm going to go with the Chargers. I feel like they are going to be one of these teams that gets hot down the stretch, and they might make some noise and sneak in as a wild card team in the AFC. So give me the Chargers.
It's funny how we just talked about home team advantage and road team advantage. But I think tomorrow night in Oakland, a night game, one of the last night games that they're going to have there, I'm going to take the Raiders in that black hole. So right off the bat this week, we disagree. So that could be 2 points for you or 2 points for me, depending on who wins tomorrow night. All right, Jack, before we get out of here, is there anything else you want to discuss?
Not at all, man.
All right. Well, you guys can read us over on thedogland.com or dogjustland or dog.land. We appreciate everybody that's read our article so far. We appreciate the support. You can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. You can follow Jack on Twitter at JMcCurryCLE. You can follow me on Twitter at Anthony Joki. You can follow the Dogland on Twitter at the Dogland. With all that, we're going to get on out here. We'll be back probably Sunday night post game. Hopefully, we're talking about a win, even though we're not very confident about it. We need to sound that victory alarm at some point again this season. I'm hoping we get to. If not, it's just an unmitigated disaster. So until we see you guys on Sunday night, most importantly, go Browns.